"You're late again." Her voice came from the kitchen, soft, but sharp. Not quite an accusation, not exactly concern. "My name is Ronald Winters, 52 years old, owner of Ironwood Forge, a heavy equipment contracting company I built with my youth and sweat in Spokane, Washington. 15 years married to Cheryl, 15 years calling Wayne my best friend, and I used to think I understood what loyalty meant. That night, I stood in my own kitchen, work boots still caked with mud, back weighed down by exhaustion. The clock read 9:30 p.m. Late, but not unusual for a man chasing the Patterson contract that could transform his entire business. "Big project," I said, scrubbing grease from under my nails. "You know how it is." Cheryl nodded, but it was the kind of nod that said she barely cared. Lately, she'd been different, her phone always face down, always guarded. She no longer asked about my work, no longer cared for the small wins or daily defeats I once thought mattered. Dinner was always cold, always reheated, always just for me. "Wayne called," she said casually, too casually. "He asked if we're still coming to his place this weekend." I dried my hands slowly, feeling the weight in my chest begin to build. Wayne Hoffman, the man who carried my father's casket with me, who loaned me money when the bank came for our yard, who held Cheryl when we lost our second child. The man I once called brother. I didn't get angry. I didn't shout. I just nodded. But that night, I knew everything had changed. "Sure. Tell him I'll bring the steaks," I said. Cheryl smiled, a quick, fleeting smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then she glanced at her phone as it buzzed. She flipped it over, read the message, and this time, the smile changed, softer, genuine, intimate. "Just Jennifer from book club," she said, though I hadn't asked. I nodded and quietly walked toward the bathroom. In my chest, a knot pulled tight, a silent warning. That feeling, I'd felt it before. Like when Thompson Construction tried to undercut our bid by importing cheaper equipment from Canada. Like when the bank manager called me son, while explaining why our loan wasn't approved. That gut feeling that said, something's not right. Pay attention. Under the hot water, my mind churned. About Wayne's new pickup truck. About Cheryl's sudden enthusiasm for Thursday night book club meetings. About the last dinner we had together when both of them checked their phones at the same time, in the same way. I had ignored the signs. Weeks, maybe months. But ignoring rot doesn't stop it from spreading. I met Wayne Hoffman on a job site back in 2010. He was a site manager. I was subcontracting for heavy equipment. We started talking about vintage motorcycles during lunch breaks, and by the end of the project we were riding together every weekend. When I decided to launch Ironwood Forge 3 years later, Wayne was the first person I called. He put in $30,000, nearly all of his savings, for a 15% stake, and never once questioned my decisions, not even during those early years when we barely broke even. As for Cheryl, we'd been married 7 years by then. She stood by me when I was just an operator earning hourly wages, when we lived in that one-bedroom apartment with a leaky ceiling. She believed in my dream, even when her parents called me that guy with dirt under his nails and nothing to show for it. We had built something truly worth being proud of, a home, a son named Thomas, now studying engineering in college. A life where Cheryl's parents, who once looked down on me, had to swallow their words during our 25th wedding anniversary party. Her father, the same man who once called me a poor boy with nothing, finally nodded in approval, eyes fixed on the lake house we had just purchased. Wayne was there, just like he always was on every important occasion. The bachelor party. Best man at our wedding. The day Thomas was born, he was waiting with me at the hospital. The three of us, Cheryl, Wayne, and I, felt like an unbreakable trio. At least, that's what I used to believe until the cracks started to show. The first sign came last Christmas. Wayne's wife, Diane, had left him the year before, saying she needed space. He spent the holiday with us like family. I noticed how Cheryl rested her hand on Wayne's arm when she laughed. The way their eyes lingered on each other just a beat too long when they thought I wasn't looking. I told myself it was nothing. Wayne's been my friend for 15 years. You don't toss that away over a gut feeling. Then came the missed calls from Jennifer at strange hours. The new perfume Cheryl only wore to her Thursday night book club meetings. The way she'd quickly lock her phone when I walked into the room. And Wayne always stopping by. When I was still out at the job sites offering to fix a leaky faucet or drop off papers, he easily could have emailed. I said nothing. I kept working late, thinking I was building our future, securing the business, the home, the life we dreamed of. I wanted to believe loyalty couldn't be shaken. But every man has blind spots, and I was walking straight into mine, eyes wide shut. At some point, a person can no longer pretend not to know. It was a Tuesday evening in April. I finished early at the Patterson site. We had finally secured the contract, the one that could change everything for the company. I didn't pick up takeout as usual. Instead, I stopped by the local wine shop and picked up a bottle of Pinot Noir, the one Cheryl always enjoyed sipping on weekends. I thought maybe if I came home early, if we sat down to dinner and talked, I could fix whatever was pulling us apart. Even if no one said it, something was clearly breaking between us. But when I stepped into the house, it was eerily quiet. Too quiet, especially for 7 p.m. Cheryl's car was still in the driveway, but there was no sound from the kitchen, no music, no warmth in the air. I set the wine bottle down on the counter. Her phone was beside the sink, its screen lighting up with an incoming message. I had never been the type to check Cheryl's phone. I had always believed, a man who trusts doesn't need to control. But that day I couldn't hold back. Wayne, his name on the screen. Left my jacket upstairs. Don't tell Ron I stopped by. I didn't freeze. I went cold. It wasn't shock, but certainty, like the last piece of a puzzle finally falling into place. I took the stairs slowly, one step at a time, like I was walking through my own life. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Cheryl was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her hands were clutching Wayne's leather jacket, the one I had given him for his 50th birthday. She looked up, saw me standing there. Her face drained of color. Ron. Just my name.
No excuses.
No lies. No running away. I held up her phone, still lit up. He left his jacket. She didn't deny it. Didn't come up with some story about helping him with paperwork or planning a surprise party for me. She just sat there, silent. Finally, she spoke. You're always working late, and he was there for me. I nodded.
No anger. No tears.
Just an emptiness like the room around us. I get it. I just need some time to process this. I turned and walked out, down the stairs, grabbed my keys from the hook. I drove straight to the Ironwood office, where the lights in the hallway were still on. I sat down at my desk, in the dark. The pain didn't come from my wife's betrayal. It came from Wayne, the brother I had once called family. 15 years. I had entrusted them both with everything. And now, all I had left was silence and an irreparable wound. The man who'd helped me build everything I had, now trying to take the most important part. I pulled out my desk bottle, the good whiskey we broke open when we landed the Patterson contract just that morning, and poured 2 fingers. Didn't drink it, just stared at the amber liquid catching light from the parking lot outside. By midnight, I hadn't touched the whiskey, but something had hardened inside me. The pain was still there, a physical ache behind my ribs, but it was being walled off by something colder, more focused. I'd spent my life building things, equipment fleets, a company, a marriage. Now I was going to take something apart, piece by careful piece. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer's private number. I gave Cheryl space for exactly 3 days. Slept in the guest room. Didn't ask where she went during the day or who she was talking to when her phone rang. I was cordial, distant, processing, exactly what a stunned husband should be doing. What she didn't see was what happened during business hours. The morning after finding Wayne's jacket, I met with Harold Kessler, the corporate attorney who'd helped structure Ironwood Forge when we first incorporated. We sat in his downtown office, blinds half drawn against the spring sunshine. You want to trigger Article 7? He said, eyebrows raised. Not a question. Yes. Article 7 was my insurance policy. When Wayne and I formalized his investment 15 years ago, Harold had suggested including a clause that would protect the company if either partner engaged in actions that could damage its reputation. At the time, I was thinking about gambling debts or DUIs, things that could scare off clients in our conservative industry. I never imagined I'd use it because my partner was sleeping with my wife. It'll mean buying him out at predetermined rates, Harold warned. 20 cents on the dollar of current valuation. I nodded. I know. And you have proof? I slid my phone across the desk, the text messages I downloaded from Cheryl's phone while she slept, the GPS history showing Wayne's truck parked at our house during work hours when I was at job sites, the emails I'd found when I finally checked her laptop. Harold scrolled through it all, his expression professionally neutral. This will get ugly, Ron. It's already ugly. 2 days later, the papers were ready. I called Wayne and asked him to meet me at the office after hours. Said I needed to discuss the Patterson Project expansion. He showed up looking exactly like he always did. Flannel shirt, work jeans, that leather birthday jacket, like a man with nothing to hide. Like my friend. Hey, buddy, he said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. What's so urgent it couldn't wait till morning? I slid the folder across to him. Article 7 Dissolution Papers. I'm buying your shares. His face went from confused to shocked to angry in the space of seconds as he flipped through the documents. What the hell is this Article 7? Actions detrimental to the company's reputation? Where is this coming from? I kept my voice level. You know exactly where it's coming from, Wayne. Is this about Cheryl? He leaned forward, lowering his voice like we were conspirators. Look, I know things haven't been great between you two. She's been lonely, man. It just happened. 15 years of friendship, and that's your explanation? It just happened? He ran a hand through his hair. You've been absent, Ron. Working all the time, building this precious company. When was the last time you actually listened to her? Actually showed up? His voice took on a righteous edge. You drove her right to me. I almost laughed. So it's my fault. I'm not signing this, he said, pushing the folder back. You can't force me out over a personal matter. Actually, I can. Section 3, paragraph 2. Read it. He glanced down, reading the fine print he'd signed 15 years ago without a second thought. His face darkened. You'd do this to me? After everything we've built together? You did this to us, I corrected. I'm just following the contract. Wayne stood up, knocking his chair back. Cheryl won't stand for this. She'll back me up. I just nodded. You should call her. He pulled out his phone, his fingers jabbing at the screen as he stormed out. I sat back in my chair, waiting for the next domino to fall. The next morning, Wayne showed up at my house. I was in the kitchen making coffee when he burst through the front door like he owned the place. Maybe, in his mind, he thought he did. What did you say to her? He demanded, face flushed with anger. I took my time pouring the coffee. Who? Cheryl. She's not answering my calls. Her sister said she left town yesterday. That was news to me. I'd given her space, hadn't tracked her movements. But I kept my face neutral as I sipped my coffee. Maybe she needed time to think. Wayne slammed his palm on the counter. Don't play games. You threatened her. Didn't you? Made her choose between me and your money? I set my mug down carefully. I didn't have to threaten anyone, Wayne. I showed her the same paperwork I showed you, the dissolution of our partnership. And I showed her the prenuptial agreement she signed when we got married, the one with the infidelity clause. His face went slack. What infidelity clause? The one that says if either party commits adultery, they forfeit all rights to community property acquired during the marriage, including ownership stake in Ironwood Forge. This was the piece Wayne never knew about. When Cheryl and I married, her parents insisted on a prenup to protect their family money. I'd agreed, but added my own conditions. We'd both signed it, then filed it away, never expecting to need it. You're lying, Wayne said, but his voice lacked conviction. I walked to my home office, unlocked the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, and pulled out a folder. Inside was the original prenup with both our signatures, along with the amendment clarifying the infidelity clause. Wayne read it, then looked up at me with something like awe. You've been planning this for 15 years? No, I said honestly. I've been protecting what's mine for 15 years. There's a difference. He sank into a chair, the fight draining out of him. So that's it? You strip us both of everything? Not everything, I corrected. Just what you took from me. But there was more Wayne didn't know. While he'd been busy destroying our friendship and my marriage, I'd been reviewing all of Ironwood's client contracts. Most had been signed with my personal guarantee, not the company's. The clients were loyal to me, not to our logo. I'd also discovered something that turned my stomach. Going back through the company books, I found small discrepancies. Equipment rentals billed to projects that never used them. Expense accounts that didn't match receipts. Vendor payments that seemed inflated. All managed by Wayne. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out another folder. The audit of your expense accounts for the past 3 years. Wayne's eyes widened. Ron, that's not embezzlement. Because the accountant says it looks exactly like embezzlement. $173,000 worth. The blood drained from his face. It was temporary. I was going to put it back. With what money? Your divorce cleaned you out 2 years ago. I needed it for Diane's settlement, he admitted. Then for the down payment on the new house. Then to impress, he trailed off. To impress my wife, I finished for him. He stared at the floor. What are you going to do? I closed the folder. That depends on whether you sign the dissolution papers. Sign, and this audit never sees the light of day. Fight me, and I'll take this to the district attorney. Wayne looked at me for a long moment. You've thought of everything, haven't you? No, I said quietly. I never thought I'd have to think of this. Segment 3, 600 words. Plan in motion. I gave Wayne 24 hours to sign the papers. He did it in 12. By the end of the week, his 15% stake in Ironwood Forge belonged to me at 20 cents on the dollar, a fraction of what it was worth after we'd landed the Patterson contract. What he didn't know was that I'd already been in touch with Patterson Construction. I'd personally guaranteed our performance on their project, assuring them that the internal restructuring at Ironwood wouldn't affect their timeline or quality. Old man Patterson himself had clapped me on the shoulder and said, "We always knew we were hiring you, Ron, not your company." While Wayne was cleaning out his office, I was meeting with our 3 other major clients, securing their business with personal handshakes and revised contracts. By the time he'd finished packing his photos and coffee mug, I'd locked down 80% of our annual revenue with ironclad agreements that followed me, not the Ironwood name. Cheryl returned after a week at her sister's place in Portland. I was in the backyard splitting firewood when her car pulled into the driveway. She approached cautiously like she was testing thin ice. "We need to talk," she said. I set down the axe. About us. About what happens next." Her voice was steady, practiced. She'd been rehearsing this conversation. "I've already filed the divorce papers," I said. "Your copy is on the kitchen counter." She blinked, thrown off her script. "Just like that? 15 years of marriage and you're throwing it away without even trying to fix things?" The irony almost made me laugh. "Almost. You already made that decision," I said, picking up another log. "I'm just handling the paperwork. Ron, people make mistakes. Marriages recover from affairs all the time." I lined up the axe. "This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You made it every day for months." I brought the axe down, splitting the log clean through. The crack echoed across the yard. "What about the house?" she asked, shifting to practical matters now that the emotional appeal had failed. "And your retirement accounts? My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything." I set the axe down again and faced her directly. "Your lawyer should read your prenup more carefully, specifically the infidelity clause." Her face went pale. "That old thing? We signed that 20 years ago. Can't possibly." "Can and it does," I said, cutting her off. "But I'm not leaving you with nothing. You'll get the vacation cabin and a settlement, enough to start over, not enough to share with Wayne." Her eyes widened. "Wayne, what does he have to do with the divorce?" "Nothing anymore. He's been bought out of Ironwood. The money he embezzled is being repaid through the sale of his shares." She sat down heavily on the garden bench. "Embezzled? What are you talking about?" I realized then that she didn't know. Wayne had been stealing to maintain the lifestyle that impressed her. To afford the gifts and dinners and weekend getaways, he'd betrayed not just me, but her expectations too. Ask him yourself, I said, picking up the axe again, though I doubt he'll take your call now that he's lost his golden goose. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The man who would have forgiven her anything, who would have worked himself to death to give her everything. That man died the night I found Wayne's jacket on our bed. Who are you? She whispered. I split another log. Someone who's done carrying people who are planning to drop me. 6 weeks after finding Wayne's jacket, I sat in a conference room at Drift Shade Limited, the second largest construction company in Eastern Washington. Across from me were their CEO, Arthur Bowman, and their lead counsel. Between us lay a stack of papers, the acquisition agreement for Ironwood Forge. One last chance to reconsider, Ron, Arthur said. Once you sign, there's no turning back. I reached for the pen. I'm not the one who'll be having regrets. The plan had come together almost by accident. 2 weeks after forcing Wayne out, I'd gotten a call from Arthur. Drift Shade had been trying to expand their heavy equipment division for years. With the Patterson contract secured and my company's reputation stronger than ever, the timing was perfect. I could have said no, could have kept building Ironwood myself, but the company had become tainted, a daily reminder of betrayal. I needed a clean break, a fresh start, so I'd made a deal. Drift Shade would acquire Ironwood Forge for twice its market value, with the condition that I stay on as division president for 2 years, bringing my client relationships and expertise with me. After that, I'd be free to retire or start something new. I signed my name on the final page, sliding the contract back across the table. Arthur's secretary appeared at the door. Mr. Bowman, there's someone here to see Mr. Winters. A Mr. Hoffman. Arthur looked at me. I nodded. Wayne walked in, his face tight with barely controlled anger. You sold the company without even offering me the chance to buy back in? I stood, extending my hand to Arthur. Thank you for your time. I look forward to our partnership. As the Drift Shade executives filed out, I finally turned to Wayne. You're right, I sold it for $17 million. His mouth fell open. 17, but my shares were worth about $600,000 at the time you sold them back to me for $120,000. The magnitude of what he'd lost hit him all at once. You son of a... I'd be careful with the next words out of your mouth, I said quietly. You're standing on very thin ice as it is. Wayne's fists clenched at his sides. This isn't over. Actually, I said, collecting my copy of the contract. It is. 1 year later, I stood on the deck of my new cabin overlooking the Columbia River. Not the vacation place Cheryl got in the divorce. A new one, bigger, with a workshop out back where I was restoring a 1967 Harley I'd wanted since I was 19. The divorce had been final for 9 months. The settlement was exactly what I'd offered her from the start. Fair but not generous. She'd taken it without a fight once her lawyer confirmed the prenup would hold up in court. I'd heard through mutual friends that she and Wayne had tried to make a go of it for a few months before it fell apart. He couldn't keep up the lifestyle she expected. Not after losing his stake in Ironwood and having his reputation tarnished in our industry. Last I heard, she'd moved to Seattle trying to start fresh. Wayne had it worse. After our confrontation at Drift Shade, he tried to launch his own equipment rental business, calling on the same clients we'd built relationships with over the years. But word had gotten around about his exit from Ironwood, about the accounting irregularities during his tenure. No one would touch him. He'd ended up taking a salaried position with a small outfit in Idaho, a major step down for a man who once owned part of the biggest equipment contractor in Eastern Washington. I took a sip of my coffee, watching an osprey circle over the river. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Thomas, my son. He was coming home for the weekend. Wanted to know if I was free for dinner. I texted back, always free for you. At 53, I wasn't where I thought I'd be at this stage of my life. My marriage was over. My best friend was a stranger. The company I'd built was in someone else's hands, even if I still ran it day to day. But I was standing on my own deck, breathing clean air, with my son still in my life and $17 million in investments working for me. I'd lost what wasn't real and kept what mattered. Some men spend their whole lives learning who they can trust. I learned it in one brutal night, expensive lesson but worth every penny.